All right, guys, we're back again for another daily college baseball discussion, and just talking about again keeping everyone up to date with all these changes. Not a lot going on since the recent December 1st roster set date announcement, and again, you're still seeing a lot of reactions from people in the game on Twitter about that, or on X. A lot of articles coming out about it. A lot of coaches kind of giving their 2 cents. We've covered that. If you're interested in that, obviously we have some videos. You can go back through the YouTube channel. Make sure, guys, if you really love college baseball, if you like being up to date with what's going on, once we get into season college baseball coverage, and then interviews with coaches, interviews with people across baseball, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the like on this video. If you're on X, share this if you can. Helps with the algorithm. I want to get this out to as many people as possible. And again, appreciate all the support you guys and consistency you guys have kind of tuning into the streams and our videos. The channel's really popping off recently, and that's in large part to all of you guys. So appreciate you guys supporting the channel and the X page and all of our social medias, Instagram as well. Had a lot of commitments this week from players, and obviously a good amount of people coming on board working with us this month. So it's been a good month. So guys, again, like with a lot of these streams, a lot of what I talk about is, kind of maybe a sneak peeks into my videos that are coming out daily, and what's covered. And usually I kind of add on to those videos. We've got a lot more time now on these streams. And so today my video was a lot about, I think a lot of you guys really like to see kind of what metrics coaches are looking for at different levels of college baseball. And so today I got a video coming out later about kind of what 60 times are coaches looking for depending on your position at a high level in college baseball. And I think there's some obvious positions where speed is really necessary. Your center fielder, you really want him to be a guy that can go get it. And I even mentioned in the video, you don't have to be a burner to play center field. It really helps if you are, but some of the best defensive center fielders of all time, like a Jim Edmonds, was not considered a burner. He was, a tick above an average runner, but elite routes, elite jumps on the baseball. Andrew Jones too, above average runner, but he was not a 6'5", 60 runner, or guys are even faster than that. So center field is a position where you want to have speed, because you may not have an elite defender routes wise or jumps wise, but speed can make up for it, right? This is that Billy Hamilton for the Cincinnati Reds when he was playing center field. If you watched his routes, a lot of times he was a converted shortstop. So he didn't have a lot of time out there in center field, and his routes were a little bit, sometimes were kind of rough to watch, but he could make up for it because he was, at that point, one of, if not the fastest guys in Major League Baseball. And so his speed could kind of make up for the not as clean routes, or the not as good kind of first step and jump. Because guys that get really good jumps on the ball, a lot of that is footwork, but the other thing is just experience. And, that first reaction to a ball hit, whether you think it's hit hard or hit, off the end of a bat or something. So center field, we all know that. We all know center field is a position that requires a certain amount of speed typically. Your corner outfield spots, you don't want guys that are slow, but you're not recruiting burners in that position. Statistically, your corner outfield spots are on average one of the highest OPS in your lineup. So you need a guy in the corner that can really swing it, and at least is like maybe a slightly above average runner, right? Best case scenario in the corner. Now you'll take a guy that can really fly, but your best case scenario is, a guy that runs a 6'7" or a 6'8". That's plenty of speed to cover a corner. But if your guy runs like a 7'0" or 7'1", but he can really mash, like, you're going to put him out there. You're going to put him out there. And you're not going to expect him to wow you defensively. In the corner outfield spots, it's more about, again, if you have a really good defender in center, he can make up for that lack of range in the gaps. Center fielder can cover that stuff. You're just looking for corner guys that make all the plays that need to be made. They don't need to be an outstanding defender. Again, if you have a guy that's an outstanding defender, that's a big bonus. But you're not recruiting that position thinking heavily about defense. That's a bat first position. Your positions on the field that are more it's not that they're defense first positions. There's just a way higher requirement for the defensive ability, and that's your center fielder, your shortstop, and your catcher. Right? You cannot afford to be average to below average defensively at those positions, because those are your primo defensive positions where a really good center fielder, he's taking away shallow singles. He's taking away extra base hits. He's providing a lot of value on defense. Your really good shortstops certainly are taking away a lot of hits, preventing a lot of runs from scoring, and the same is true with your catcher, right? Your catcher in college baseball now, and even at the pro level, even though it's changing at the pro level because of all these changes to you can only pick off a few times now, so people are stealing more. But for a long time, the biggest emphasis was on, in college particularly, is blocking the baseball, right? Not allowing wild pitches or pass balls. And because that free 90 feet, a runner advancing from first to second in college baseball just kills you. So your number one requirement for any catcher is that he's going to prevent balls to the backstop, balls getting away from him. He's really good at keeping the ball in front of him. And then the framing, right? Stealing strikes. We all know how important that is now, and really good catchers can do a great job of kind of increasing the size of that strike zone by a little bit. I'm not for or against the one knee stuff. I think you guys have seen, I've done videos on that in the past. I'm not for or against it. I think there's certain situations where, fine, if you want to do one knee. I think there are certain situations where you probably want to be in a little bit more athletic stance and equal weight distribution. I see guys argue all the time that catchers are just as good on one knee. And it's like, if you then decide that your knee is down on, you definitely don't have as much mobility to that side. And you definitely can't push off your knee to the opposite side as well as you could your foot. That's not to say, again, that I'm for or against one. I think it's a little bit like analytics and kind of old school baseball knowledge. Like if you have the perfect combination of both, you're in a really good spot. And so I see that with catching. Again, now catch and throw. If you got a guy who can really catch and throw, that's important. I mean, college baseball guys steal bases, but pitchers are just so good now at controlling the running game. Every pitching coach is training their guys, be 1-3 to home or shorter. And that's going to give your catcher, majority of the time, a good enough chance to throw a guy out. Your catch and throw guys were really important back in the day when everyone was using a big leg kick and, they were 1-5 to the plate. Well, you needed a guy that could really get rid of it quickly with a lot of arm strength. Now it's more like, as long as you're accurate and have a decent arm, if your pitcher's doing a good job being quick to home plate, you're fine. But you really cannot afford to have a guy that can't block the ball back there, who's just given up 90 feet after 90 feet because he can't block it. And again, the framing. So for your middle infielders, guys, this is the position that I think a lot of people make the assumption that you need a guy that can really run, or at least is a, above average runner. So in a 60 time, like a 6'8", 6'7" type guy who's again, above average runner to a plus runner, but that's just not the case. I mean, shortstop in particular, and again, this is the reason why 60 time is kind of, it doesn't make sense to evaluate a shortstop speed by a 60 time. A shortstop or a second baseman are really never getting up to top speed on any ground ball hit to them. Right? It's like a 4, maybe 5, 6 steps max you're taking. And so it's way more important that your shortstops are quick out of the gate, get a good jump on the ball, just like a really good outfielder. But that those first 3 or 4 steps are the most important for a shortstop. So if you have that lateral quickness, if you have the right actions, you can get rid of it quickly. You have a lot of arm strength. You're not gonna be against a guy recruiting him because he's a 7-0 runner or a 7-1 runner. Again, if he's a plus runner to higher runner, that's great. But it's way more important that he's got the lateral quickness. He's got a good first step out of the gate, and he can actually get rid of the ball quickly, and he's got a good arm. His glove work is really good. Your 60 time is kind of, again, it's an added bonus. Same is true with your second baseman. You are never getting to top speed as an infielder on any ground ball. Now, on a fly ball that you're running back towards, sure. But you're not playing shortstop because you're really good at going back on a fly ball, or second base because you're really good at it. You're playing that because you're going to turn double plays. You're going to make all the outs. You're going to make some extraordinary plays if you're a shortstop or a really good defender at second base. So 60 time, again, it's like if you're a 7-5 runner, that's probably not a good sign, right? But you don't need to be this crazy burner in the middle infield spots. And I'm interested to hear kind of what your guys' thoughts are on some of this as we continue. Your corner infield spots, guys, again, these are the positions in catcher where there's just as little emphasis on speed as possible. Your first baseman, you don't want a guy that's a base clogger, but man, if he can mash and he's fine defensively, you're going to be okay with it. Right? If he's hitting for a lot of slug and he's fine defensively, he'll make all the routine plays, and he'll pick it every once in a while. You're not going to care that he runs a 7-3 or a 7-4. Now, best case scenario, you have a guy that's is maybe an average runner at first base or better, but you're not evaluating a guy very heavily on his speed at first base. Now, there is an issue where a lot of guys think that first base is kind of this just like really easy defensive position. I think there's a lot of nuance to playing first base. One of the best defenders at first I ever played with was my teammate in college, Jake Davies. And he was a big guy, was not a good runner, but man, he had a quick first step. He could spear one, dive and catch it. He could really dance around first base in case of a wild throw, and really had great footwork around the bag to play behind it, to play on side of it. I mean, he was just one of the best, maybe the best defensive first baseman I ever played with, as far as picking it, stealing doubles down the line, stealing base hits in the 4-hole, and really, really mobile around the bag. So you can actually be an elite defender at first base. Makes a big difference for your infielders, because your infielders then don't feel like you got to make a perfect throw every time or you're going to look bad. At third base, you're probably getting a little bit better of an athlete at third than at first. But again, the most important thing, he's got that quick move. He's quick on his feet, right? Just like first, he can spear that base hit down the line or that base hit in the 6-hole. He's got a really, really, really soft hands at third. He's at the hot corner. He's going to be playing in a lot. He's going to get those laser one hops at him. More important that he's got all those characteristics and a strong arm, then he's a good runner, right? You're looking for, and if your guy is around 7-0, 7-1, 60 there, you're going to be totally fine. Now, again, if you're up around a 7-5 range and you don't have some of those characteristics, you probably need to improve some speed a little bit. But it's just not one of those positions where you're going to say no because his 60 time's a little slow. Right, you're another corner infielders. You need big bats there. Those are your high OPS guys, your high slug guys that are going to drive in a lot of runs. Question here from Let's Go Caps. Welcome to the chat, Let's Go Caps, by the way. How do you get and maintain soft hands? That's just training, man. I mean, that's training short hops. That's training your backhand short hops. Have a guy just throw 6-7 feet away from you and just pepper you with short hops. Get loose like that. Just training your hands how to not just catch it, but catch it as you're bringing it back towards you, right? That's what separates a good defender from an elite defender, or guys that can get that tricky short hop or in between hop, pick it while they're bringing it back to them, and then they can get rid of it pretty quickly. So you can train that in, like, throwing darts and hops on both sides, in between your legs, your forehand, your backhand, and also then bring that into your ground ball work. The way you develop, again, it's a lot easier than I think people make it out to be. People don't get better on their infield defense because they're getting just kind of weak hit ground balls, and they're just getting routine hops. And again, you get better by challenging yourself. So when you're taking ground balls, like, have the coach hit it hard, like make these hard ground balls to field. And at first you're going to fail and you're going to struggle and it's not going to feel good. And then eventually, after maybe a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, you're going to get used to it, and you're going to get used to making that read off of the ground ball. The best infielders in the world never get those in between hops because their footwork is so clean and their reads on the ground ball are so good that they know when they need to take a step forward here into a nice easy short hop, or I'll take a step back and play that into a long hop. Your best infielders in the world never get bad hops, right? And not never is a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. Your average infielders and your bad infielders, they're getting bad hops all the time because they don't know how to read the ground ball and play it into an easy short hop. So the more you can take ground balls that are challenging on a field that you play on, or if you have to on turf in an indoor facility, the easier those reads are going to get. It's going to become second nature to you, and you're going to train that glove work as well. So I hope that helps. Kane's back in the chat. LSU fan. Uh-oh. LSU fan. Caps, are you an LSU fan? I can kind of see your picture on here. I don't know. I'm trying to see what it is. Hey, it's hard not to be an LSU fan, man. I mean, they like, this is what I think. I mean, at least they're athletic association administration are like, we're going to invest in sports, man. They have a great brand and they're going to take advantage of it. And then, like, obviously your catchers, guys, talking about catchers, like you could care less about your catcher's speed. Again, like, the better the speed, that's a bonus. But like I said, it's all about, does he block the ball? Does he keep it in front of him? He doesn't give up pass balls. He can catch and throw. Like, that's probably number 3 in the equation. And number 2 is framing, right? Like, does he make it to where the strike zone seems a little bit bigger when he's catching? Is he a guy the hitters have to be worried about, catching that ball right below the zone and sticking it, making it look like it's better? Okay. Got a lot of new chatters today starting out right here. So Caps, again, thanks. Laugh out loud. No, I'm just a DC sports. That's what I figured. DC sports fan. Love Cruz and JD5 though. Most of my family did go to Ohio State though. Okay. Yeah. I mean, Dylan Cruz is, again, I think he's going to be a good player. His minor league numbers were not what I think a lot of people expected. Again, when you're a top 5 pick out of college, I mean, you're projected to get to the big leagues really quick, and he did. I would say he didn't necessarily dominate the minor leagues like a lot of people thought he was going to. So I'll be interested to see kind of how his career continues from here. I mean, certainly was one of the best hitters, if not the best hitter in college baseball. But I think his power numbers were a little bit lower than people thought. And that's kind of what I predicted, Caps, with how the ball's traveling in college baseball. A lot of guys' power numbers were going to be inflated compared to what they would be in pro ball, because it's ridiculous in college baseball right now. So I'm excited to see what Cruz does in his career. I think there were a lot of people a little bit disappointed with some of his minor league numbers. Son is a junior in 2026. He made all region and all conference as an outfielder, in a 4A conference as an outfielder. He has an opportunity to play second base if he stays this season, but the team will not make the playoffs. C3 Money, thanks for joining the chat, man. Welcome to the channel. I'm trying to figure out what, if you're asking a question, or I get what you're saying, right? He had a great year as a 26, all region, all conference, in a 4A conference. He has opportunity to play second base if he stays. So are you deciding if you're going to like move schools or something? Let me tell me what you guys are thinking. From Maurice Reyes, I can add about that. Get a walla, a rubber tennis ball, and start catching barehanded, scooping the ball using your wrist. Yeah, great. I mean, like what we did back in the day. Now, and when I say that, it's like I'm 33 years old. But what we would do is, we'd play that. I can't even remember what the game was called, but you throw a baseball. You'd have a glove and you throw a baseball against a brick wall, and it would bounce, and you would just, you'd play. You try to knock the other guys out, and you're trying to throw it, difficult, and you're picking it, and you're training those soft hands. Just playing that game where you stand like however far off or a tennis ball, like Aris is saying, or like a lacrosse ball, and just practice scooping that with your bare hand, and then you take that into your glove work. Wall ball, yeah, wall ball. Canes, great. Let's go Caps. Wall ball, that's right. Wall ball, man, that's a great way to develop soft hands, because you're just constantly reading a bounce and picking it. And again, you got to take that. That's like a kind of a good warm up, and then you take that into your ground ball work. Because again, soft hands is one part of the equation, but the other part of the equation is you reading the ground ball and judging what your footwork needs to be. So, okay, and again, this happens so quick in your brain. It's like hitting. The ball takes 0.3 of a second to get to home plate. But it seems like it's longer than that, because you're sitting there and you're reading the pitch and then you're reacting. And same is true with ground balls. Like, you got to make that quick decision on, do I take a step back to play into a long hop? But if you mess up and you take a step back and now you play it into an in-between hop where it's going to be tough, you make an error. Whereas if you take one step forward and just kind of pick it in front of you, short hop, it's easy. So yeah, we got Canes here and Caps saying wall ball. Thank you for the pickup on that, guys. I can't believe I forgot the name of that, but it's been so long since I, was doing that as a kid. And I think that's why, even as an outfielder, and I see this more now, more than when I was playing, because we all played that game growing up. I mean, everybody did it. You played it outside your house. And I think kids just aren't as they're not as outdoors anymore, like playing in the neighborhood, playing sports, playing football with your neighborhood friends or whatever. And what I see a lot is there's a lot of kids, especially outfielders, who they have just no feel for picking the ball on hops in the outfield. And it's because they never really did that. Aris, in the Dominican days, you got nothing to catch. We used to catch barehanded or make gloves with cardboard. Yeah, that's that old Mariano Rivera glove. I know you see that thing with the cardboard. He'd put a hole in it for his finger. And then he's like, man, this was a good glove, man. And you're looking at it as American, and you're like, how the hell did he catch anything with that thing? But there's a reason why those Dominicans and Venezuelans and the Mexicans and the Puerto Ricans, there's a reason why those guys got soft hands. Because like Aris says, a lot of those kids don't have the resources to have like a decent glove or a glove at all. And so they're out there playing with their bare hand, or they're playing with like a makeshift cardboard glove. Man, you put a glove in that guy's hands, he ain't gonna miss a ball. He ain't gonna miss a ball. And so, like, back to some of the metric stuff, guys. So it's really important to look at recruiting in this way. Your corner infield spots, you want to recruit big time bats, guys that are going to hit for high average, especially a high slug. These are your middle of the order bats that you're expecting to drive in a lot of runs. So if you're playing first base out there and you're not hitting for a lot of power, we gotta start developing ourselves at another position, or we got to start working on hitting for more power, because that's what they're recruiting, right? And you have to adapt to the environment. That's always been the case for first base and third, but it's even more kind of exaggerated now. Your shortstops, your second baseman, your center fielder, you're not expecting as much from the bat, because you do need a lot of defense in those positions, but you're going to get the best bat you can. So you don't need to be. I was not a power hitter, but I was a 6'4", 6'3", 60-time runner. I was an elite defender in center field, and I was a really good leadoff hitter. I took my walks. I had long at bats. I stole bases. I scored runs. So I filled my role in the lineup that way. Canes, my PE teacher was the one that would make us play it. He had one son who played for Elite Squad during their peak, played at Marshall, JUCO, and currently plays for the Savannah Bananas. Oh, Lord, what's his name? His other son is one of my good friends who also played at Jacksonville University, I'm guessing. Marshall and Jacksonville. Is that what you're saying? I thought in the first one you were saying JUCO, but I think you're saying Jacksonville University. And that's a great baseball program. Yeah, you know what, Canes? I don't know how to feel about the Savannah Bananas. Like, I think it's cool. Like, as long as people understand that it's like the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. Again, a lot of the old-timer baseball guys hate it because they feel like it's opening a window into what it's creating. Like I think a lot of these, like Rob Manfred and the commissioner of Major League Baseball, a lot of the changes he's proposing are things that you would see in a Savannah Bananas game, right? You can only pick off twice, so we encourage stealing, or the golden at bat rule, which to me is just like, we're playing a different game now. If that's the case, we're not playing baseball. I mean, we've already taken, again, I'm going to go on an old man screaming at the clouds rant here, but we've already taken away the most strategic thing in baseball, which is why you needed a good manager in the dugout, which was the National League pitcher hitting. And I know some people think, well, again, like the amount of pitchers that got hurt swinging the bat is completely negligible. That was never an argument. They're getting hurt way more likely now just from throwing a ball than they were hitting. And you needed a manager that really knew how to manage a bullpen and knew you had important decisions every game. You're in a 3-4 game and you're in the 7th inning and your starting pitcher's still got a low pitch count. He's doing really well. Or maybe it's 2-1 game, whatever. You're up 2-1. He's given up 1 run in the 6th and he's dealing. All of a sudden you got bases loaded, 1 out, and the pitcher up, which again, it's like he's probably going to ground to a double play or he's going to strike out. So how do you handle that? Well, that's the manager's decision to say, okay, I'm going to pinch hit and go for it. Well, it may pay off. You may get a hit, you may drive in runs, or you may not, and now you lose your starting pitcher. There was so much strategy involved in that. You could do the double switch, where you could do a double switch in the middle of the lineup to where all of a sudden you make it to where the pitcher spot's not coming up for another 9 spots. There was so much strategy involved in the National League. And now, again, your manager is just kind of looking at pitch counts of bullpen arms. I mean, that's really what you're doing as a manager now. There's so little strategy involved now with the DH. And to me, as like a baseball fan who understood that part of the game, you could really tell who the good managers were because they're like, man, he made that tough decision and it paid off. Back to C3 Money 180. I love your name. Should he stay and get second base experience or go to a better team as an outfielder and go further in the playoffs? Would he increase his value? He's average on second base, just not as good as outfielder. He's also a good running back. I would say it's better for him to just play outfield, C3. Like, one, in your high school season, coaches are really going to evaluate you more in the summer than they are in the high school season. So what you do in the high school season and what team you play for, they really don't care. It's more about your overall tool set, how good of a ball player you are, how you perform in the summer against maybe, depending on what region you're in and your state. Like the region I played in Georgia, we played a lot of really good arms, so it wasn't a big jump in travel ball. But some people come from regions that aren't very competitive or states that aren't as competitive, and it's a bigger jump in competition, and so coaches can really see how you perform against that competition. But I don't think it's worth it, to get second base experience to me, or I don't think it's worth moving. But if you want to do that, that's fine. But if he's better in the outfield, you probably want to focus on the outfield, but still get that work in at second base to make yourself more versatile. Let's go Caps. I like Banana Ball. Brings a new type of baseball to a younger generation, not for the MLB though. Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people. And again, I'm kind of in the middle. Like I'm probably never going to go watch them or watch any of their do anything. I'm not against it. Again, it's like kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters, but the problem is when, like, again, maybe a lot of kids, because this is what would happen is maybe 20 years from now, a lot of guys that grew up young guys watching the Savannah Bananas are like, man, regular baseball's kind of boring. I'd rather see them doing like the gritty before they throw a pitch, or doing a backflip before they throw a pitch, or all these trick plays and stuff, which again is cool as a performance. As long as I'm with you. I mean, as long as it doesn't affect the MLB, Caps. That's kind of my stance, right? Canes, yes, Jacksonville, and his name is Corey Cubano for the team. His real name is Corey Cubano. That's funny. C3, sorry, it would not let me send a chat to finish my question. He could very well be a two-sport athlete in college. Okay. Well, I mean, again, I think, like, C3, one of the things I'd say for every position player now, like, the more versatile you are defensively, the more positions you can play. If you're a really good outfielder, but man, you could fill in at second, or you could fill in at third base, that makes it easier for you to get into the lineup, because you may be a stud at your position in outfield, but they have a hole at second base or third or whatever. And now you can fight for that position. Like, I was a left-handed thrower and a center fielder, so I had 3 spots in the outfield to compete for. I couldn't play infield, right? I was never going to play first base. I was like, I'm 5'10". I guess I could have filled in there, but I was never going to play first base at a high level. So if I was right-handed, every day in practice, I would have been getting my fly balls in and then getting ground balls, just to make myself more versatile, more of a utility player. That again makes it easier for a coach to at least bring you on the travel roster, because man, we can fill this guy in if someone goes down, or if we want to play this guy today, he can move to here. It just makes it way more likely that you can find a spot in the lineup. So one of the topics I want to talk about today, guys, is are coaches even are a lot of coaches even thinking about 27s and 28s right now? And we got a great video that I'm going to bring up here from Shooter Hunt and Josh, a good friend of mine, Josh Jordan at LSU. Obviously, the recruiting coordinator there, one of the best recruiters in the country, and obviously why he ended up at LSU. So we're going to show you guys that. We got another question here from Fletcher Brown. Fletcher, welcome to the chat, man. What age youth baseball would you say that a kid would project to play college D1? 10 under, 12 under, 14 under? None of them. None of them. Because, and this is the thing, Fletcher, like 10 under and 12 under, if you had seen me play, I looked terrible, right? I really did not figure it out as a player and really kind of start becoming a good player until I was probably 13 or 14. But even then, you have no idea how they're going to develop physically. And what I tell guys is, like, I think people think like you're kind of born a really good player or not. And you could be a terrible player at 12 under and you work your tail off. And again, at 12, like, I want you to have fun. I don't want you like working at baseball like it's a job. You get into high school and you have goals now, work at it like it's a job, right? But you can develop yourself so much with the work that you put in. So I wouldn't look at it like that. I think at 14, you can kind of tell, oh, this guy's got some talent. But again, if he doesn't work hard, he's not going to develop in 3 or 4 years. And he may play college, but he won't play as high as he should have. So again, at that age, I would never project where a kid could end up or whatever. I worked with a kid who signed on with me trying to think here, maybe as a freshman, his freshman summer, freshman spring, maybe 3 years ago. I had never seen him play. His parents really just wanted guidance on development and help in the recruiting process. And I was like, listen, I can't guarantee anything because I haven't seen the player. But again, if you're willing to put the work in, you can go far. Well, that kid is now committed to one of the best mid-majors in the country. And it's only because he wasn't some stud player. He wasn't some super gifted player. he just put the work in, right? He put the work in for 2.5, 3 years, and now he's at a team that hosted a regional 2 years ago, right? Georgia Southern, which is in South Georgia. It's one of the best mid-majors in the country every year, winning their conference championship or playing for their conference championship and getting into the NCAA tournament. All right, a lot of questions here, so I got to catch up here. Reese, I've noticed kids don't watch games anymore. In the 90s, my brother and I watched games with my dad. He used to ask us all kind of strategy questions about the game. Our IQ of the game was huge because of that. How do you want to increase your IQ as a player when you do not watch it? And this is his continued part from Reyes. 100%, Reese. Like my dad, a lot of you guys know, I mean, my dad was a general manager for the Braves, for the Orioles, was basically the number 2 guy for the Marlins when they started and won the World Series, for Boston when they won the World Series in 2018. So I grew up with my dad being the guy running major league teams. So I had those conversations with him all the time. So I had this kind of source of baseball wisdom that I ate at the dinner table with every night. And every day of my career in professional baseball, after the game, and except when I got to AAA and I was on the West Coast or in Colorado all the time, I'd call him the next morning. But I would talk to him after every game and go over my at-bats and go over situations in the game and get his feedback. And sometimes at that point, I was a AAA player, so I really understood the game. I knew what I was doing. So we would disagree sometimes, or he would tell me something and I would be like, yeah, you're right. Maybe I wasn't thinking like that. But the only way to develop IQ is to watch situations and think about it and gain that experience, Reese. 100%. I'm gonna have a video coming out about that soon, about kind of how to start thinking about the game in a way that will help you with baseball IQ. But a good point. Canes, I saw that yesterday. Man said he was aboard for the 2027 and 20. Yeah, we're going to get into it in a second. Canes, of course you saw it, man. You know all these things. I love watching shooters' videos with the coaches. Unfortunately, they only interview the SEC and don't give the ACC time of day, aka Miami. Laugh out loud. Yeah, it's like everything, Canes. Like, these guys have better relationships and feel like with certain coaches more so than others. Like my goal, again, I talked with Elander yesterday. He's like, I'm going to make sure with compliance, like we're all good to go. And then he said he was going to get back to me. So I'm just waiting for him to respond. Maybe tomorrow or Friday. It could be pushed to early next week, but he's going to be on. So we'll be talking with the University of Tennessee's recruiting coordinator. But I'm also, especially once we get through this Christmas time period and New Year, where everybody's at home with their families, we're going to have, again, mid-majors, lower-level D1, Ivy League, D2, JUCO, D3. We're going to have all these guys on. So you guys know what all these different levels are thinking and the similarities between them, the differences, etc. Bill Wallace. Welcome back, Bill. Welcome back to the chat. One of the more dedicated guys now. He's always popping up in the stream. You're like Canes now, Bill. And Arises as well. I get shout out to Arise as well. I wasn't projected D1 until fall of sophomore year in JUCO. A lot can happen if you do the work. Yeah, it's like, I tell this story. You guys have probably heard me say this, but one of my best friends in professional baseball, his name was Nate Orff. He played at Baylor. He had an injury red shirt. He was a catcher there. Had a good career. Wasn't like a superstar or anything. Doesn't get drafted his 5th year senior. Signs a non-drafted free agent deal with the Milwaukee Brewers. Well, he gets drafted, and they tell him, you're not going to be a catcher. You got to be a second baseman, middle infielder, third baseman, utility guy. So he spends that whole offseason. I believe he didn't play that first half year, or maybe he did. But then he went to instructional league and then spent that whole offseason working on being an infielder. Had to send him to high A his first year because he was like 24 years old when he was drafted. Well, he had a good year, kept working. He ended up playing in the big leagues for a few years, and played shortstop in the big leagues, right? So this is a guy who he put in the work. You can go way further than you think. He was a non-drafted free agent back when it was 40 rounds in the draft. He probably signed for $500, and if he had hit 230, 250 his first year, he was gone. But he succeeded in a situation where most guys wouldn't. So I'm going to bring up this video, guys, so we can watch it now. And this is from Dan Savette at PBR. 2027s, 2028s. If you think or have been told that college coaches aren't recruiting you, think again. Nice segment from Shooter Hunt with one of the top recruiting coordinators in the country, LSU's Josh Jordan. Build that prep baseball resume so you're ready for the interview. Plug in the prep baseball stuff. You know, it's whatever. It's what
things have slowed down, but it has not slowed down the evaluation.
Right, here we go.
So it sounds like the things have slowed down, but it has not slowed down the evaluation process. And you like to look to the past. So like freshmen and sophomores right now, you can't talk to a sophomore until August 1. We're looking ahead to the future games, getting those phones charged, whatever. That doesn't mean that you have not heard these guys or have gone to see them.
No, quite the contrary. I mean, you know, even now in my office, we have a board with the 2027s and the 2028s. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, because I still have time to discover that and figure that out. And just because, you know, there's a young man that I think are supposed to be ranked on this board at this point in time, well, that might not be the case coming July 15th this summer. And so that's where I love getting the opportunity to build a history with the prospect and his family, and understanding who's going to be part of our program. And because again, you want to bring in the right people when you talk about a recruiting class.
So it's funny, like, you know, I know Josh really well. You know, anytime I see him out, I think I saw it. This is how dedicated of a recruiter Josh Jordan is. I went out to a tournament to see actually the Matthew Shorey guy that I talked to you guys about yesterday, the guy who's at Vanderbilt, freshman at Vanderbilt right now. And I'm at this game on a Wednesday in the middle of the spring season for college baseball. And I'm walking up to the field. It was in Hoover, Alabama, one of those tournaments. And I see a guy in a purple shirt and a purple hat, and I'm like, no way he's out recruiting over here right now. And sure enough, it was Josh Jordan, and we sat and talked for, you know, a few hours watching the game. And, you know, he's one of the best recruiters in the country. He's out there grinding on the road the whole summer. He's at every tournament. He's one of those guys. He's like Tony Vitello. Like, it's no question why Tony Vitello and Josh Elander have been able to put together so many big recruiting classes, because they're out at every tournament. And that says something to recruits, right? When a coach has seen you play 4 or 5 times and they love you, it makes sense. You buy into it. You fall in love with the coaches and their philosophy and what their approach is to the game. But what did Josh say here? I have a board with all the 27s, all the 28s. Now, again, he's probably not really focused on 28s yet, but he knows the guys that are at least ranked. I can imagine for LSU, for Josh, he's got like the top 30 players on prep baseball and perfect game. And he's like, that's his board, you know, because he's going to get out and evaluate them. But he'll be out this summer evaluating those guys, right? He's going to be looking to evaluate those guys. And so if you're 27, coaches will be out evaluating this year. It's probably going to be a little bit later in the summer. A lot of coaches will be out at the college summer leagues, but if you're an LSU and you can get the best of the best, you're going to be watching those top guys. From Canes here. I saw the whole video. He gave out a lot of game. I sent that video to the staff and told them they need to flex like he did. We have as many trophies, if not more, than they do. Yeah, I mean, it's part of the brand, right? That's what you're trying to get as many of these trophies in the screen as possible. It's like, yeah, we win games here. We win championships. We win the College World Series. But I mean, I don't think there's really not. It's not like there's a uniqueness to what Josh does in recruiting. I mean, he's a really personal guy. He's a likable guy, and I'm sure that comes across to recruits. But it's also that he's just out and he sees guys. Like this is one thing you're seeing more of now with the portal. You're seeing a lot less coaches out. And what that means is they may not see a high school kid as much as they have to. And so that guy, all of a sudden, you may see him on some bad days. And because you only saw him once or twice, you're out on him. But if you had gone to 2 or 3 more games, all of a sudden, you're like, dude, this kid's legit. And I think that's why Josh has been such a good recruiting coordinator. You look at what him and Chris Pollard did at Duke and really turning Duke from a fairly kind of bottom of the ACC team to a top level contender in the ACC year by year. and doing that at a high academic school like Duke. This is why Josh Jordan's at LSU, right? And he's, like I said, in the middle of the season on a Wednesday, he's in Hoover, Alabama, watching players, trying to get an edge, trying to get an advantage over the other schools in the SEC. There's a reason why LSU has been so successful. A lot is expected of you, but if you do a lot, you put the work in, the results come, right? That's what I've been trying to tell you guys since I started this YouTube channel. He sounds like a recruiting sicko that I need on my staff. Dude, he is. Yeah, I mean, he's like, and again, like with LSU's resources, just think about this, Canes, but like they can afford to fly him out to a tournament for 2 days, then he can be back for the weekend series, right? If he's not, especially like once if you think, hey, these guys, we really need to get eyes on them, he'll fly out to go see him, or he'll drive out to go see him. Like he's not against doing that. I mean, he's a grinder on the road, 100%. And that's the thing. You don't see a lot of head coaches out doing that. Tony Vitello is out at every single tournament. I see him out at every single tournament. And now Tennessee's like the best program in the country. So it's just like, that's got something to do with it, that like not only a assistant coach is out there recruiting you, but the head coach is there watching you multiple games. You feel like as a player, when the head coach is out there watching you multiple times, like, man, they're really interested in me because the head coach is out here. You know, this other school, I've seen their hitting coach or their recruiting or their pitching coach, but a head coach I've talked to him on the phone once. You know, that's not how Tennessee does it. Aris Reyes, my son is 16 playing varsity. I never had him playing travel until this time. Why? Because all that time I invested in development. How to spend thousands in travel when you can coordinate personal training. Yeah. I think a lot of people think, and I think you're spot on, Reyes, a lot of people have these kids at like 10 years old and 11 years old and 12 years old playing travel ball and playing like 70 plus games a summer. Some of them even more than that. And first of all, like, their bodies are still growing. How are they going to recover? How are their bodies going to recover from that stuff? And that's why you're seeing these youth injuries all the time, because people are just overplaying, overthrowing. And like facing good competition when you're 12 years old, it's not, it doesn't bring the effect that I think a lot of parents think it does. And like you said, Reyes, if you're spending time on a development, like a hitting coach that's really working with his swing development and teaching him how to be a hitter. And, once you're old enough, if you're 15, you get, 8th grade or freshman year, you're getting serious. 7th grade, you're getting more serious in the weight room, investing in that, where, man, all of a sudden you become kind of a physical specimen for your class. I wish I had done that. Again, there wasn't as much information out at that time about nutrition and how much protein you could eat and get a lot of benefit from. But man, that would have been big for me. If I came into Georgia Tech at like 175, like I was my junior year, so 25 pounds heavier, it would have been a total game changer. They already have a 2028 commit from our legacy players. Number 1 ranked player in 28, Lale Esquivel. I think I said that correct. Hopefully we can flip him if we win. Yeah, good luck. Good. Oh, is he a legacy player like his dad? His dad played at Miami, Canes. Is that what you're saying? Good luck flipping a guy from LSU, man. Good luck. They got NIL money, bet more than almost anybody. They're going to be probably up around 34 scholarships at least. By the time this kid can actually get a scholarship offer, it's going to be a full ride. So you better be able to give this kid a full ride and like $50K minimum, right? His dad won 2 rings here. Yeah. So that's the thing. You should be able to get that kid, right? And he must have commit right before the communication changes. Man, but that was a while ago, dude. He was in 8th grade when he committed. I guess that's not too crazy under the old rules. There were a lot of 8th graders that committed. And his travel team name is SBA Canes. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The yeah, it's interesting. Canes, like that's a guy that Miami should have a good chance at, but again, like with LSU's advantages in the NIL market and the scholarship market, even though I know Miami's going to be higher, right? But if you're the number one player in the 28 class, and again, like some guys he may all of a sudden in 2 years, he may be like in the top 50, he may be in the top 100, or he may stay in like the top 5. But those things, especially at that age, those things change pretty consistently. They're pretty dynamic, the lists. So who knows where we'll end up, but certainly it's going to be tough to flip a guy from LSU, right? Unless they just are terrible for a couple years and it doesn't look like they're going in the right direction. But I think that's hard when you have Jay Johnson as a hitting coach. He's one of the best hitting coaches in the country. And, you have the staff that they have. So his travel team is named SBA Canes there in Texas. Does he live in Texas now? Is that where he's from? While I wait for Canes. Manny Sanchez. Manny, welcome to the chat, man. Thanks for the question. What do you think is more important, travel or high school ball? I think they're both important, but they're important for different things, Manny. So in travel ball, you learn winning is the most important, right? You're trying to win every game, and you are in travel ball in a sense. But again, if you're trying to win a state championship in high school ball, you're going to be in situations where games on the line, you got to perform, right? And that's experience that is super vital to you being a successful college player, because the same is true in college to even greater extent. It's all about winning, to the point where if a guy struggles for 5 or 6 games, he might get benched to see if another guy can step up. So high school ball is important for you to learn how to play team baseball, right? You're doing everything you can to get your team to win. So you're gonna try to pull a ball on the ground at the second baseman to get a run in from third. Stuff like that. Travel ball is where you're going to get seen by college coaches. So travel ball, one, you're facing good competition, so it's good for development. There's really not, you're trying to win, but at the same time, the point of travel ball is for coaches to see you. So it's about your performance and your development. So travel ball is the most important in recruiting. Not a lot of coaches going to high school games. Now, there are some that will, but typically those are going to be your local schools that it's an hour drive to your high school in the middle of the week, in between their games, where they can go see you, maybe you pitch or you play. Again, that's going to be a very small percentage of coaches seeing you. The 95% of it, 98% of it is going to be on the travel ball circuit. And so in travel ball, it's really important that you're playing in the right tournaments, right? Like the tournaments where all the coaches are. You talking about the PG Elite in Hoover, the World Wood Bat down in Florida, the World Wood Bat 17 and 16 under in East Cobb, a lot of the big tournaments at Lake Point in Georgia, because a lot of guys play. And then you got the big tournaments in the Midwest that all the Midwest schools are going to be at. So it just depends on your region. You're playing in those tournaments where a lot of those schools in that region are going to be, and then those national tournaments where almost every school in the country is there. But this is the other thing, Manny, like, these tournaments have 10,000 players in them. So the reality is, even if there's every coach in the country is there, unless they know who you are and you have someone that's kind of communicating with them and giving them your schedule, they may never see you, right? You may play one game in the tournament at the complex in East Cobb, and if they don't know who you are, you're not getting seen. Canes. Guys, if you're looking for help in the recruiting process, scan this QR code, fill out the form. We'll meet with you, talk about how we work, see if it's a fit for your family, and talk about, show you guys kind of where we think you're at in the process, what our evaluation is of you, and then ultimately see if you guys want to work with us, if it's a fit. So scan that QR code. If you are looking for help in the recruiting process, fill it out and we'll meet with you. Canes are from Texas. Well, that kind of stings, right? Because if he's down in South Florida, he's probably going to Miami or, one of the big Florida schools, like a Florida State or a University of Florida. It's always one or two things, Canes. It's always like the younger brother wants to chart his own path at a different school, doesn't want to be in his brother's shadow, or the son of a former player either wants to, take over the legacy at that school from his dad or start a new legacy at somewhere else. So it's kind of like, it's always like one or the other. Manny with the thumbs up. Hey, you're welcome, man. Thanks for the question. It's a good question. And like I said, they're both important, but they're important for different things. And there's a lot of guys now I see, there's advisors out there telling players to skip their starts in high school baseball. And it's just like, man, like winning a state championship's kind of fun, right? Or at least playing with your buddies. You'll always remember those games playing it with your high school friends on the team. I tell guys this in college, like the days you remember the most. I won an ACC championship. Obviously, that was a pinnacle memory in college for me. Unfortunately for Canes, it was against the Miami Hurricanes in 2012. But the days you remember the most are those terrible conditioning days where your strength coach is just trying to kill you and you're all dying and you make it through. Your gut check days when you get back from Christmas break to see, hey, who put the work in, who didn't. You're running full laps and half laps. You're running timed laps with sleet on the ground on turf, and you're slipping and sliding. And if you miss the time, you got to run more. And those are the days that I just thought, looking back, and even while I was in school, I loved it because it was just man against man. Like, who are the tough guys? Who are the soft guys? And I tell guys this all the time, for you players out there who may be committed and going to a school, or you're a parent of a player who's committed, typically that one of those first workouts you do, and at Georgia Tech it was day one, or not day one on campus, but your first day of baseball kind of individual work, whatever, you did a gut check day. And a lot of people think, well, they want to see who's in shape. And it's like, yeah, that's part of it. But there's no amount of work you can put in to be ready for these things. My freshman year, our strength coach, we had groups of 5. And he had a sled on the warning track, or not the warning track, on the warning track all around the field. You had the timing of all the other drills you were doing, which are also killing you, was based on that team of 5, how long it took them to get around the warning track. And there was probably 150 pounds on it or something like that. And he didn't really test it. He tested it on turf. Well, the sled, pushing it on dirt in a warning track was way harder. And so I remember one of my good friends saying, I think Steve messed up, man. I don't like this. I don't think he intended it to take 10 minutes a drill. So we all died that day. I mean, we all died. We were reborn in the suffering. But you remember those days the most. Manny Sanchez, I was a JUCO bandit, then went to NAIA, as you mentioned. Was fun times have changed, but I agree both are important. 100%. You never forget those days where you're just grinding. Those grindy days when I was in AAA. AAA in the minor leagues is the only league in the minor leagues where you're flying pretty much to every stadium. And, we flew everywhere because we were in Colorado. So we had to fly to the West Coast. We had to fly down to New Orleans. We had to fly down to Texas. And so the rule in AAA, so you didn't miss your game if flights got delayed, you had to take the earliest flight out. Well, we didn't fly out of Colorado Springs. We flew out of Denver, which is about an hour and 10 minutes north of Colorado Springs. So we're on the earliest flight. Our buses, guys, we would play a game, and by the time you were showered, done, you had eaten, and you were back in the place you were renting, it was like 11:30 or midnight. The bus was at 3:30. So you couldn't even go to sleep because you knew I got like 2 hours before I need to be up. And then you're on the bus to the airport. You're flying all day. You get to that hotel, and you got a game that night. And you're thinking, man, if I can just get a walk or a hit, I'm golden today. I'm golden today. Just give me a walk or a hit, please. I got 2 hours of sleep. My personal case with high school, lots of politics, parents complaining for playing time, babying big boys, lots of handouts, some people with agendas for their kids, given spots to whom they do not deserve it, continued. And we'll see what else he says. Craig Sisson, A. Reyes. Yeah, so I mean, this year, guys, I'm actually one of my former teammates at Georgia Tech, Mark Pope, who was Golden Spikes Award finalist, our Friday night starter my freshman year, and then played all the way up to AAA, was a 4th-round pick. He's the head coach now at Wesleyan in Atlanta, Georgia, which is a big private school. And he asked me if I wanted to help him out with hitters and stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing that this year. So I'm going to be dealing with some of those, hopefully not dealing with a lot of those politics, Aris Reyes. But I think it's just about, I think as long as the high school coach is upfront with parents and objective about what he's looking for. Again, there's always going to be parents who have no idea what they're talking about, who think, well, my son's better than him. And in reality, he's not. Right. And our number one goal as a coaching staff is to try to win a state championship. So we're not going to play guys because we like them better or because the parents asked us. We're going to play the best guys on the field because that's the only way you can win as many games as possible. And back to Reyes, lots of influence and pleasing people. I grew up nothing being given. I grew up nothing being given. You need to earn it. Some programs, they do not care about winning. Some high school feed their programs to recruiting kids from other schools. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's 100% a thing, right? And there's a lot of high school coaches that are just like leaving the industry because of how bad it is now with some parents. And again, I think as a coach, and I'm speaking for myself, right? I'm not speaking for Mark Pope and how he's going to handle it. But if I was in that situation, I think you have a meeting with all the parents at the very beginning of the season when practices start, and you say, this is what our goals are. These are how our kids are going to be evaluated and measured. And when the season starts, the best 9 will be on the field. That's it. In my eyes, the best 9 will be on the field. Nothing else. And I think if you're upfront with parents about that, at least they know what your thoughts are, how you're evaluating them, stuff like that. But again, you're never going to be able to please anyone. And I think the coaches that do try to please every single person, they're not going to be as successful on the field, right? Because if you're saying, all right, well, I'll give him a chance, I'll give him a shot this game, and then you lose that game, and then you miss out on the playoffs because you lost one game. Manny, sorry, Reyes. Any high school coach I knew played the best players. Can't speak for everyone. Yeah, and again, that's how I was, Manny. Like my high school coach, he did not give a rip about what parents said or what they thought. Again, he would talk with them, but it was very clear he was in charge. He was setting the lineup. He was going to play the best guys. I think what Reyes is really talking about is that there are some schools, and a lot of times it's a head coach who doesn't have a lot of experience in the game, like a high school coach who never played at a high level. They feel that they're probably not as confident in what they're doing. Like my high school coach played professional baseball. So he knew what he was looking at, right? And so when you have that kind of experience, it's very hard for a parent that doesn't have similar experience to tell you don't know what you're doing. And so if a coach is like that, not that every coach like that has that issue, but certainly some will, where they don't have a lot of ground to stand on in their own experience, and so you fall victim to kind of people pleasing a little too much. And again, that's only going to affect and hurt the outcome of the team when you're doing stuff like that. And it's certainly different now. I mean, the thing that I really struggle with watching high school players is the amount of disrespect for the opposing team. Again, the trash talking is just getting out of control, where, kids are talking trash from the dugout. What really gets me are the guys that aren't even playing that are talking trash. It's like, dude, you're not even in the lineup, and you're talking trash to a guy who's in the lineup. And I think we've gone from, when I was playing, you really didn't see that at all. You really didn't see that at all, unless things were really heated, like some big thing happened. And now it's just like from the very beginning. I mean, dugouts are talking trash to the other team, and it used to be, hey, we're supporting our guys. Don't worry about them. Support our guys. like root and cheer for our guys. It's gotten to the point now where it's just like players in the dugout are talking trash more than they're rooting for their guys in the box or on the mound or on defense. And I think that's a bad place to be for college baseball, because it ends up being, we're seeing guys getting kicked out of games. And again, like, guys, remember this, like, the difference in one game, the difference in you being 14-16 or 15-15 in the SEC and the ACC is the difference between you getting seeded higher or making the tournament. So if you're a big time player and you get kicked out of a game and then you're suspended for an extra game or 2 games and you miss a weekend series, you could cost your team hosting. You could cost your team making the tournament. And it's just ridiculous. Manny, laughing emoji. We used to joke about that. The guys talking the most are wearing shades, not even on the field. Yeah. I mean, and again, I think part of it comes down to you had that senior leadership on your team that if you were a freshman or you were a sophomore doing something like that, they'd be like, dude, shut up. What are you doing? You're not even playing. Like, I had seniors be like, hey, why are you speaking? And not even in a game, but we're eating lunch at the cafeteria and they're all talking. And I try to add my 2 cents as a freshman who doesn't know anything. And they're like, can you shut up? And yeah, it kind of sucked, but like, you kind of understood. It was like teaching you how to show respect and understand you're at the bottom of the totem pole right now. So that when you got to the top of the totem pole, you kept the team in line as well. And you don't see that anymore. You don't see guys, and I think the transfer portal has a lot to do with it, because guys are leaving, so there's no continuity. A lot of those seniors that would say that to me were guys that really didn't play much, but they were still a senior on the team, and they're like, dude, we don't care if you're leading the ACC in hits. Like, shut up. Like, just shut up. And so again, that self-policing of the team from your upperclassmen doesn't seem to be happening anymore. And it seems to be getting less and less. Like, you may have one guy on the team that does it, but if there's only one, he's not gonna be able to do it to everyone that needs to be done. You need to have leaders on the pitching staff, leaders on the offensive side that can tell their guys when they're doing something stupid. And so again, it's like that can come from the coaching staff, but the best teams have leaders that police the team themselves and push the team themselves and push the guys that aren't working hard enough. Say, hey man, we're trying to win a championship. Like, can you take this seriously? Like, I know you think this is funny, but like, we're trying to take this seriously. Or guys that are not, they're not pushing themselves in conditioning. I mean, I was that guy in conditioning where I knew a guy was just kind of being soft and was going to cost the rest of the team having to run more because he wouldn't push himself for 20 seconds. I'm getting on you, right? I'm calling you out and I'm saying, hey, we're all making the time. You can figure out how to make the time. This isn't an impossible time to make. There's pitchers that your size that are making the time. Everyone else is making the time. Pick it up. And so I think with the portal and guys leaving, like, if you don't play as a freshman now, you're leaving. Whereas a lot, like, guys that were leaders on my team as a freshman at Georgia Tech that ran the kangaroo court where, we'd meet as a team and they would call out freshmen for doing stupid stuff and call out other guys on the team. It was called the Core Four at Georgia Tech. And these were 4 guys. It was basically the 4 guys that were least likely to get in the game. And they were kind of elevated to a leadership position, even though they'd never played. And they were the judges of Core Four. They would, or of Kangaroo Court, and they would, fine you for team activities. That money would go to a team activity and say, hey, you know what? Like, Ren was late to class and cost us in conditioning. So that's a max fine was like $3 or something, or $5. That's a max fine. And if you tried to defend yourself in court, max fine. You weren't given the floor to speak. And like I said, those were 4 guys who basically were like least likely to ever get in the game. So not only did you have leaders who were studs on the field and those guys kept you accountable, but you had 4 guys who never played and they were also leaders on the team. It was really a cool dynamic. But you don't see that anymore. You don't see that anymore because those 4 guys who never got in the field, well, those guys are all going in the portal now, which it's like, fine, maybe that's better, but you don't have that continuity of leadership that's getting passed down from the old guys to the young guys because guys are leaving. Like you got studs that would be the leader of the team that are now going to LSU or they're going to Georgia or they're going to North Carolina or Virginia Tech. And so that team, you're not only losing a stud, but you're losing a leader on the team who would kind of hold other people accountable based on how hard they were working. If you knew that guy was a stud on the team and he was working hard, you felt like, man, if he's doing that, I better up my game, right? Reese, my son starts in high school, but I see the bias. I sit away from parents because they encourage bad character and values. Some coaches also have a sick culture. Great teams play, lead, and hold high standards. Yes, 100%. 100%. There's a lot of coaches out there, especially in travel ball, that allow their players to just talk trash, cuss out the umpires, cuss out opposing players. And it's like, why are you letting that happen? Why is that allowed? And I think they're scared that if they do that, players are going to leave their program. But it's like, you should be, you're not only preparing these guys for baseball, but you're preparing them for their future lives. And you need to be teaching them character and how to be respectful to opponents or people, your teammates. And it's 100% true, Reyes. The best teams in college baseball hold themselves to the highest standard. You don't run out every ground ball hard, you're gone. Leave practice. We'll see you tomorrow. You don't want to work hard? That's not what we do here. You only have to do that a few times early in the fall, and everyone's going to run hard. Because then they know you're serious, right? What a lot of coaches try to do is they want the standards, but they're not willing to enforce the standards. So a guy doesn't run hard, you get on him, but there's no punishment really. He just, you got to, hey, let's go, run hard. It's like, okay. If you tell that kid, hey, you must be tired, you didn't get a lot of sleep, you didn't show up and want to work today, why don't you go home and rest? Tomorrow when you show up, like, let's see you work hard. Let's see you run hard down the line. Because guys don't understand, but that's the guy who, in a game, must-win game, he jogs down the line, or I'll tell you an example from Georgia Tech, a kid I coached and got on all the time. He's jogging to first base after a single. Guy on second. He scores. Right fielder sails the throw, but because he's jogging to first, he panics and tries to get to second, gets thrown out at second in a big situation, and all we can do is kind of hold our heads and all we can do is this. Right? That costs you in the season. So if you don't hold people to a standard, that will cost you. And sometimes there's nothing you can do. Like that guy, I talk to him all the time about, hey, show up to practice early, run hard. Can you act like you want to be here? Bill Wallace, a lot of sense of entitlement going on too. See it with travel ball players coming into high school as freshmen, expect to start at a varsity level. 100%. That's what I do with my clients, Bill, and our clients with Elite. Is it's a lot about just like helping them understand that there's a lot of kids now with the portal situation. They're like, I'm just going to go to a D2 and hit like 15 home runs and hit 330, or I'm going to go to a JUCO and just ball out as a freshman. And I'm like, do you think it's going to be easy? Like, do you think there's no learning curve? Do you think these guys are like terrible at JUCO and D2? They're better than you, and you haven't proven anything. Sure, you're good in high school. A lot of kids are really good in high school and then get to college and are terrible. So let's humble ourselves a little bit and let's put the work in, but let's not start talking like that. 100%, Bill. Guys think they've earned a spot on the high school team because they had a great summer ball season as an 8th grader or a freshman. Just how about you earn the job by being a good teammate, showing up early, practicing hard? Mark Myers, welcome to chat, Mark. If a player in Arizona wants to play for a D1 school in the Midwest or on the East Coast, should he attend a prospect camp after reaching out to the coach? It just depends, Mark. I mean, it depends on the camp. Because, like, for instance, for all our clients, we reach out to the schools beforehand. So we let them know, hey, you know, Mark Myers is going to be at the camp. Like, here's some video on him. This is kind of my evaluation of him. I think he could be a good fit. That way, school knows something about you. They know to look out for you. A lot of times at some of these camps, like, coaches may not be paying attention that much. There may only be one coach there. Some of these camps, there's none of the coaches there. It's like player development guy and players running the camp. So it depends. Definitely that's important. Like, but I would want to say you kind of want to know there's interest already. Right. And so if with Elite, what we do is we reach out, and if they're like, oh yeah, video looks good, like make sure he gets here. We want to, so we can see him in person. Then it's like, okay, we're going to get feedback. We're going to get an idea of what they thought at the camp. But if you're just going in blind, and again, like you may reach out to the coach and email them or something or DM him, but sometimes those just don't get answered and don't get seen, because think about how many players are doing that, right? Whereas we have the really good relationship with the coaches. So when I text them or I call them, they pick up or they answer, and we have a conversation about the player to see kind of what they think. So I think it's important to do that, but I wouldn't just do it unless I'm have an idea of the interest level of the school. Because if they're like, they may be like, well, we're not interested, then you're just wasting money. You're flying out there, you're spending money on a hotel. It's just like you're wasting a lot of money for no value. And the other thing is a lot of East Coast schools and Midwest are going to recruit more regionally. So again, it's like you want to make sure those schools are at least have some interest, even if it's surface level. Fletcher Brown, thanks for the question. Who's the best guy you played with? Neither high school, travel, college. Best guy you played against? Any stories that set them apart? Yeah, I mean, I was in big league camp with the Milwaukee Brewers and Cincinnati Reds, right? So I mean, I was in big league camp with Yasiel Puig, with the Reds, with the Brewers. I mean, Christian Yelich. I was in all the outfield drills with Christian Yelich. Lorenzo Cain, Josh Hader and I were teammates for a few years in AAA. And, those guys are all just hard workers. I got a funny story about Josh Hader. I mean, when he got to AAA, I had been in AAA for a year or two before that. He got to AAA in 2017. And he had been a starter his whole career in the minor leagues. He was mid-90s consistently, could touch it in the upper 90s, right? And in AAA that year, he's getting lit up. I mean, you can look this up. Look at his AAA numbers in 2017 in Colorado Springs. He's getting lit up. And his velocity was way down. I mean, he was throwing like high 80s, like touching low 90s. And so it's one of those things as a teammate where you're like, man, something's going on. You're kind of like, you don't want to bring it up to him. And he knew, right? And so we're all like, man, what's going on? Our pitching coordinator comes in town, and in the Colorado Springs clubhouse, the lockers are all kind of in a U shape. And then in the front, there's a big window into our manager's office, Rick Sweet. And Josh Hader, the pitching coordinator, and Rick Sweet are in there for about 30 or 40 minutes. And it's like a pretty serious conversation. So we're all in the clubhouse like, hey, what's going on in there? They've been in there a long time. Like, we're thinking, are they going to send him down to AA? Like, what's going on? And so his next outing, he starts, but he only goes 1 inning, I believe, or 2 innings. And so we're thinking, okay, and his velocity was up again. And so I don't know if his arm was kind of hurt or he was trying to go easy in the first couple innings. But like I said, go look up his stats in the minor in 2017 in AAA. I mean, it was I want to say it was like an 8 ERA or something. If not like a 6 or a 7. And he makes 2 starts with 1 or 2 innings each, does really well, big leagues. And the rest is history. Right? So he went from, we're all like, dude, what's wrong with Hader? Like, he's getting lit up, his velocity's way down, and then he's in the big leagues, and all of a sudden he's like the best closer in baseball. So, and he had been dominant the years prior, right? That was just kind of like a tough stretch for him. But that was a crazy story because we were all like, it went from being like, dude, he's about to get sent down to he goes to the big leagues and just dominates. But yeah, I mean, I played with a lot of really good players. Yasiel Puig, that's a guy you don't want to get on the wrong side of. The guy is built like a bull, is the only way to say it. I mean, he's all of 6'3", 6'4", 230 pounds of pure muscle, like 5% body fat, 6% body fat. Unbelievable. Cannon. Reyes, how come you're going to call the coach because your son was benched? How coaches start you coming late to practice? How can you let the players cursing, slamming, or how much parents not know they're harming them? 100%, Reyes. 100%. Mark Myers, thanks. Yeah, no problem, Mark. Thanks for the question. Let's go Caps. Wow, didn't expect that's how he got sent up. Dude, go look at his numbers in 20. I'm going to look it up, right? I'll bring it up for you guys, right? We're going to do the research here. Josh Hader, MILB. All right, so we're going to look this up. You guys are going to see it. Maybe I'm misremembering it to an extent, but why can't I just find this? I don't want the advanced stats. Can I just get the regular stats? Here we go. Okay. Okay, so I'll pull it up. It's not as bad as I remembered. He's got a 5-something ERA, which for him was like crazy high. In his career, for him, that was crazy high. If you look at the rest of his numbers, like look at his career, 1.8, 2.7, 3.2, 3.0, 3.2, 5.3, and that's with the 2 starts where he threw 2 innings each and gave up no runs. So that he was probably around a 6 ERA when that meeting happened. And if you look at the numbers, right, 52 innings pitched, 49 hits, so he was giving up a lot of hits, 31 walks. So his WHIP was 1.54. 51 strikeouts. He wasn't even striking out 1 an inning. He was just under 1 per inning. So he was not having a lot of success. And in 12 starts, he just had 52 innings. So, he was going like 4 innings a start. Where if you look at the years past here, the year prior in Double-A, 162 or 126, 126 innings, 161 strikeouts, 55 walks, 101 hits given up. So he was really struggling in AAA for him, right? For him, a 5 ERA for him. And again, in the PCL, your numbers are going to be slightly inflated, but like he's the kind of guy it really wouldn't affect him. So yeah, and then I played with so many great players, man. Christian Yelich was the most down to earth guy in the world. Awesome guy. Funny story as well with him. And then let's get to Bill here, and I'll tell you my Christian Yelich story. Mine was Scott for a lot of reason, too much to type, but had a great attitude and love for the game. Scott Hemman. Sheesh. Let's go Caps. So Christian Yelich story. So in big league camp, you have these meetings, and then I'll probably end it after this story. But in big league camp, you have all these meetings, right? You have like a security meeting going over how to be careful when you're walking around and, just stuff. And you have all these different meetings for everyone. And one of them is to go over gambling, no sports betting on baseball, all this stuff. And they talk to you about hey, you're going to have friends, you're going to have family members that reach out to you about players for trying to get inside information. Like that is not allowed. You don't want to be in the gray area at all, right? With any of these guys. This is early in camp, so we're done. We just had BP, some defense stuff, and then we're done at about 11 o'clock in the morning or 10:30 in the morning. So we're all, we're having this meeting and get showered, got a little or worked out, got a little shower in. About 11:30, I'm leaving the field to go get some lunch and then just go home, chill, maybe play some golf, maybe go play poker. I don't know. And my twin brother calls me. And I pick it up. I'm like, hey, Colby, what's up? First thing out of his mouth, hey, how's Yelich looking? I'm thinking about picking him up in fantasy. And I'm like, dude, we just had a meeting about this. I'm like, you're trying to get in. And it was just a fantasy league, right? So he's, but I told him, you know how I'm pretty good at hitting line drives into center field pretty consistently in BP? He's like, yeah. I said Yelich does it the same, but they're all over the batter's eye in center field. Right. And that was the biggest surprise for me with Christian Yelich was how much raw power he had. Because he always had like hit for decent power, like high. At that time, he'd hit like 18, 19, maybe 20, 21 home runs in a year per year. But I mean, he was just consistently launching balls dead center on an Arizona field, which is like 410 feet to center field with like a 50 or 60 foot batter's eye, just like it was nothing over the batter's eye. And I remember thinking like, holy cow, this guy's going to, I think I told people, I'm like, I think he's going to hit like 30 plus home runs this year or 40 plus home runs because Milwaukee, the ball flies really well. And obviously the Marlins Stadium was kind of the opposite at the time. It still kind of is. It's not really a good hitter's park. And yeah, I mean, he was launching balls like I couldn't believe in BP. I was like, holy cow, I didn't know this guy had this kind of power. Ryan Braun, another guy who, and a Canes guy, Miami Hurricanes legend. He whipped the bat through the zone like I'd never seen somebody do. I mean, he would hit like line drives 8 feet off the ground that looked like they were going to go straight through the wall in the outfield. I mean, it was insane. Insane, the kind of whip. He swung a really long bat, and like the amount of whip on his bat was unbelievable. So, I mean, I got to play with a lot of really good players, man, and a lot of really cool stories. A lot of guys that I played, like Corbin Burns and I were teammates in AAA, and you kind of knew he was going to be a stud. He made it up the minor leagues very fast. Nasty cutter. Brandon Woodruff, another really good friend of mine that I still talk to, who's in the big leagues with the Brewers, and he was an all-star. When did you play in the Dominican? And who was the best player on that team? That was in the summer or the winter of 2017. I played for Licey in Santo Domingo, the Tigres. And our best player... Well, Juan Francisco at the time, I think, was trying to break the Dominican home run record. I think he might have. He was one of our first basemen. Christian Bethencourt was our catcher, who I knew from the Atlanta Braves, and my dad had been a part of acquiring him. We had, who was some of our other guys? It's funny because in Dominican, you have a bunch of guys who are no longer in affiliated baseball professionally, but they're still studs in the Dominican League. It's kind of crazy. But I played in the first half of the winter, so like a lot of the big league guys weren't there yet. Because they usually come and start playing in the second half when it's closer to the season, so they're kind of ready going into spring training. But I'm going to end it there, guys. Appreciate all the questions in the chat. That was really fun. Appreciate all the first-time chatters like Caps and Manny, and I think Mark's been in here a few times. I think Fletcher's been in here a few times, but really enjoyed the conversation, guys. Bill, Aris, Canes, thanks for chatting, guys, and we'll see you again